Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. He looked exactly how I expected. Smug, polished, pretending this was just another meeting he'd already won. My father sat at the end of the long, glossy conference table, his legs crossed like he owned the air in the room. Navy suit, gold watch, that same casual smirk he wore at every board meeting. But this wasn't his boardroom, not today. I sat down directly across from him. No handshake, no smile, just eye contact. I placed the thick evidence packet in front of me and didn't look away. My name's Rachel. I'm 33 years old, based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And yeah, that man across from me, he's my father. Or at least, he used to be. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The three-panel arbitration board shuffled some papers, murmured legalese I didn't care about. The air smelled like coffee, sweat, and fresh toner. It was too cold in there. Those fake corporate temperatures meant to keep people stiff and alert. I didn't need the help. I'd been waiting for this day for over a year. He leaned forward slightly when he saw the folder in my hand. "Is that what this is about?" he said, grinning like he was humoring a child throwing a tantrum. "You really think anyone's going to take this seriously?" I didn't answer. I opened the packet. Dozens of pages, doctored invoices, fake inspection reports, payment memos with consulting fees that were just coded bribes. Every piece cross-referenced, notarized, verified. He blinked once, then, I swear to God. He chuckled. "Jesus, Rachel, you always did like your little science projects?" There it was, that same tone, the one he used when he humiliated me in front of his friends at 12, holding up my volcano project and telling everyone, "Guess she won't be building bridges anytime soon." Only this wasn't the backyard, and I wasn't a kid. This was arbitration, a federal matter, and I wasn't here as his daughter. I was here as the whistleblower. One of the arbitrators, a tall woman with a tight bun and no expression, asked me to begin my statement. I flipped the packet open to page 1. These are internal documents from Westridge Global's infrastructure division, all from the last 8 years. The totals amount to over $42 million in fraudulent billing and safety violations. He didn't blink, just sat there like it was beneath him, like all of this was noise. But then I pulled out the second folder, the one marked personal accounts and family holdings. He shifted in his seat. Finally. I set the folder down, locked eyes with him, and said, "Let's start with the school in Guatemala." He didn't say a word after that, just stared like I was bluffing. I didn't blink. I didn't move. I let the silence sit there until the board told us to break for the day. 2 days earlier, I'd shown up unannounced at my mom's place in Cary, a 2-story colonial she kept spotless, down to the plastic runners on the stairs, smelled like lemon cleaner and fabric softener, same as always. But everything in that house felt off, still, like a hotel room that hadn't been lived in long enough to collect dust. I let myself in. Her car was out front. "Mom," I called out. She was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter even though it was already clean. When she turned, she jumped a little. "Rach," she said, smiling too quick, like her face forgot how. "You scared me." "What are you doing here?" I saw it right away, the purple blooming under her left eye. She tried to hide it by brushing her hair forward. Didn't work. "What happened?" I asked. My voice came out too hard. "Oh," she said lightly, waving it off. Banged my face on the cabinet door. I'm so clumsy sometimes, right? Just like she tripped that time in Tahoe. Just like she fell in the garage. Just like she twisted her wrist pulling weeds. Even though the backyard was nothing but gravel and a fake fountain he'd installed for curb appeal. She turned her back to me and opened the fridge, probably hoping I'd drop it. "I was in the neighborhood," I said. "Figured I'd stop by." "You never just drop by." She pulled out a carton of eggs she wasn't going to cook and stared at the expiration date like it was written in Latin. I didn't say anything for a second. I just looked at her, the cardigan sleeves pulled down too far, the quiet way her shoulders sunk when she thought I wasn't watching. "Is he still living here?" I asked. She froze for half a second, then opened the carton and started counting eggs. "Sometimes," she said. "He's been at the condo more lately. With the arbitration coming up and all." I leaned against the counter and waited. She didn't look at me. "I know what you're thinking," she said finally. "But things aren't that bad. He gets stressed. You know how he gets that hit different." She didn't defend him. She didn't call me dramatic. She didn't try to lie. She just said it like it was weather, like a thunderstorm rolling through the kitchen. I crossed my arms. You ever think about leaving? She shut the fridge too fast and flinched when the door slammed. I did, she said, so quiet I barely heard it. A long time ago. I packed a bag once, even got in the car, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't have money of my own back then. I opened my mouth, but she shook her head. It's not your responsibility, she said. You don't have to fix this. I'm not here to fix him, I said. I'm here because I'm done pretending. He put lives at risk. He stole, lied, hurt people, and I'm done sitting in the corner waiting for someone else to care. She turned and leaned against the sink, holding onto the edge like her knees might buckle. They won't believe you. He always finds a way out. I reached into my bag and pulled out a flash drive. Set it on the counter between us. This says otherwise. She looked at it like it was radioactive. What is it? Everything. Financial records, emails, reports. I made copies. The feds have the original. I just thought you should see what I'm fighting for. She stared at the drive but didn't touch it. What if it all comes back on you? Then it does, I said. But I'm not going to be the one who looked away. She finally looked me in the eyes, really looked. And for the first time in years, I didn't see fear. I saw shame, not for what I'd done, for what she hadn't. She opened a drawer, took out a small Tupperware container, and placed it in front of me. Take this. I made deviled eggs yesterday. You used to love them. That was her version of saying, I believe you. I nodded, grabbed the container, and turned toward the door. As I walked out, I didn't hear her cleaning. No wiping, no humming, just silence. I didn't turn back, didn't wait for the door to shut behind me, just kept walking, deviled eggs still warm in my hand. That quiet didn't hit me all at once. It crept up slow, like the kind that follows an explosion, the silence after the wreckage. And it reminded me of that night 5 years ago. The gala, downtown Atlanta, early spring. Black tie, crystal chandeliers, hired string quartet, playing a mix of Coldplay and Mozart. I was being honored as one of the top engineering minds under 35. My modular bridge system had just been implemented in a post-hurricane zone in Puerto Rico, something I'd spent 4 years refining and testing, long nights sketching stress diagrams in my tiny apartment, skipping sleep to fight for permits and budgets. I'd earned that recognition. I stood near the podium, holding the plaque, my name, engraved in gold. I actually felt proud for once. Not like I'd borrowed the success, but like I'd built it brick by brick. And then he showed up. He was already 2 drinks in, surrounded by donors and board members, all men in their 50s with cufflinks and empty laughter. I could smell the cologne before I saw him, the same expensive stuff he wore in courtships and courtroom fights. He clapped me on the back hard enough to make my knees shift. There she is, he said. Miss Engineering Wonder. Guess those robotics camps I paid for finally paid off laughter. From the circle. Not belly laughs. Polite, lazy chuckles. Like they weren't sure if it was a joke or a jab, but they'd follow his lead either way. I smiled, that kind of smile where your cheeks burn and your throat tightens, where the only thing keeping your face in place is pure adrenaline. I said, thanks, Dad, like it didn't cut deep, like it didn't gut me to hear him reduce my work to a childhood hobby he once mocked. He leaned in and whispered, don't let it go to your head, Rachel. You still work for me? Then he stepped back and raised his glass to the group. She's brilliant, isn't she? Always had a brain for systems. Got it from me, of course. They all nodded, half drunk and half interested. My hand clutched the plaque tighter. He never liked when I won. Not if the spotlight stayed on me too long. He needed it redirected. Always back to him. Always tied to his legacy. I stepped away before I could say something reckless. Walked out into the hotel hallway with the plaque still in hand and no coat. I stood there by the elevators, breath shaking, teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached. I didn't go back in. I booked a ride home and left him inside with the other suits. He texted me later. Proud of you, kid. Don't be so sensitive. I never replied. Never invited him to another ceremony, another pitch, another award, ever again. He didn't notice. Or if he did, he never said a damn thing. And that's the part that stuck. Not the insult, not the condescension. The fact that he didn't care enough to even ask why. After that gala, I stopped looking for his approval. Didn't need it. But I still worked for Westridge Global, buried under layers of middle management, trying to stay out of his line of sight while doing real work that mattered. He used to say construction was about foundations, but I knew damn well his empire was built on shortcuts and smoke. It started small in a contract out of the Honduras site. We'd submitted specs for a hospital wing, and the report said it was finished. But the aerial shots? Just a concrete slab and half a roof. So I pulled the delivery logs, then the supplier invoices. They didn't match. Materials were listed. But the companies that supposedly sent them, they didn't exist. Names like Aerolink Imports and Centex Supplies, no physical address, no tax ID, no online footprint, ghost vendors, shells. I kept my head down, asked no questions out loud, just flagged anomalies and filed them under a private folder on a personal encrypted drive. I cross-referenced the Guatemala project next, same story. Steel beams, delivered on a date the roads were closed for flooding. Laborers listed as paid, with no proof of work logs, no insurance claims, no site records. It wasn't sloppy, it was clean. Too clean. He'd hidden behind middlemen. Old colleagues, family, friends, people with spotless resumes and offshore consulting firms. Nothing ever tied back directly, but I saw the pattern. Same vendors, same project codes, same accounting language, line for line. I brought it up once, casual, in a budget review. Hey, I said to this guy named Vince, one of Dad's old bulldogs. Isn't it weird we haven't gotten post-build inspection reports for the Lagos site? He stared at me like I'd asked why the sky was blue. It's a different process overseas, he said. Don't worry about it. Just update the completion log, I didn't argue. I just nodded, made a note, and sent a copy of that exchange to my backup server. From the outside, everything looked pristine. Public reports showed record growth, international praise, even awards for humanitarian infrastructure. That was the part that burned the most. The speeches, the interviews, the photos of him smiling in front of schools that never opened. I pulled 2 years' worth of internal project data, matched it against supplier shipping manifests, customs forms, fuel receipts, anything that could confirm physical delivery. Most of it didn't line up. Milestones were being billed that never happened. Roads that were supposedly paved still had dirt paths. Clinics were just blueprints collecting dust in planning offices. It wasn't just negligence, it was fraud. Systemic, organized, and funded through layers of fake invoices and ghost contracts that funneled money back through consultants. Some of them had ties to our family, cousins, a stepnephew, and ex-brother-in-law. Names I hadn't seen in years, now attached to LLCS, operating out of mailboxes in New Jersey. He was smart. He never left fingerprints, but the shape of his hand was all over the blueprint. I stayed quiet. I didn't confront anyone, not yet. But every file I opened told the same story. A legacy built on lies, and a father who hid behind people like me to keep it going. The deeper I went, the worse it got. But nothing hit harder than the Guatemala file. I pulled it up late one night, laptop propped open on my kitchen table, fingers numb from typing. I'd helped design that site, a school complex outside Antigua, 3 buildings, solar-powered, earthquake-resistant. It was supposed to be a prototype for rural education hubs, a project I actually believed in. Back then, we were told it collapsed during a storm. Foundation gave out. Freak accident. 1 student dead, 3 injured. I remembered getting the email and sitting there frozen, hand over my mouth. That was over a year ago. We all grieved. Thought it was a tragedy no one could have seen coming. But I saw the invoices now, and it made me sick. The paperwork claimed full materials were delivered. Steel beams, safety rails, ground stabilizers, everything. Every page stamped and signed. I cross-checked it against internal field photos, the ones buried deep in the archive logs. Not one showed rails. Not one showed the secondary supports. The school collapsed because it was never finished, and the parts that were finished, done with cheap materials that weren't even on the original specs. I stared at a single line on the invoice. Safety rails, installed and inspected. $13,250. I remembered standing at that site months before the collapse. No rails. I'd asked one of the site supervisors about it, and he said they'd be added last. End of week, he told me. We're just waiting on the shipment. That week never came. The rails never showed, but the money moved anyway. And the kid who died? 12 years old. I found his name in an old field report. Mateo Lopez. He'd been helping his sister carry chairs inside during a sudden rain. I sat there shaking, staring at the screen until my eyes blurred. This wasn't just fraud. This wasn't about numbers on paper anymore. This was blood. A body buried under rubble caused by missing materials no one had bothered to check on because the report said completed. I wanted to scream, punch something. Instead, I opened another folder. More projects, more lies, more names. How many more Mateos? I printed that invoice and pinned it to the wall above my desk, right next to the original site sketch, the one I drew by hand on graph paper before it was ever digitized. Back when I still thought what I did could help people, now all I saw was what it cost, not in dollars, in lives. I didn't tell anyone what I found that night, not yet. I just sat there, facing the wall, the fan above clicking in that slow, broken rhythm. Then I opened a new document, started listing every project I'd ever touched, every corner I never thought to check, every assumption I'd made that the numbers were real. Because if I was going to take him down, it had to be for the right reasons. And this was the only one that mattered. I didn't sleep much after that. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the invoice again. Safety rails installed and inspected. $13,250. So I stopped trying to sleep. I started digging. Travelogues came first. I had limited access, just enough to see internal company scheduling, flight reimbursements, hotel expenses, and gas stipends. But it added up. People were billing for trips to countries with zero ongoing construction, places where we'd filed reports saying projects were either delayed or inactive. I cross-checked names. Vince, the same guy who brushed off my question about the Lagos inspections, had been in and out of Belize twice during a non-operational quarter. His expenses were filed under site development prep, but there were no plans submitted, no bids, no permits. Then I pulled vendor payouts. One flagged account, supposedly for modular steel shipments, was receiving regular transfers just under $50,000. Every 2 weeks, no invoice detail, just project codes. The recipient? A holding company out of the Bahamas, registered to a consulting firm with a single listed employee. My dad's second cousin, Brian. A guy who used to run car washes and suddenly got into international logistics. I didn't say a word. Not to coworkers, not to friends, not to mom. I opened a new encrypted file, created a dummy Gmail with 2-factor auth and a fake name. From that point forward, every discovery went in that folder. I logged every pattern, every name, every shell company. Some of the offshore accounts were barely hidden, like they didn't expect anyone to look. Homes in Mallorca, land in Turks and Caicos, even a yacht registered to a construction consulting firm with no employees and no contact number. The boat's name? Legacy One. That part almost made me laugh. It was always the same pattern, a network of old men Dad had collected like chess pieces over the years. Some had been with him since the 90s. They got promoted fast, never questioned. They were clean on paper, but their fingerprints were everywhere, just behind the curtain. Still, his name never showed, not directly. He was too careful, or maybe just too arrogant to put anything in writing. But I knew what I was looking at, and I knew it was enough to trigger something bigger. So I reached out to a federal task force, the Construction Compliance Fraud Division. Niche, small but effective. I used the dummy email, gave no names, just raw data, the kind that couldn't be ignored. I didn't ask them to act, I didn't threaten. I sent the packet, attached my personal number, and waited. 12 hours later, I got a call. "This is Agent Keller," the voice said. "We need to meet." In person, I met him 2 days later at a coffee shop 2 counties over. Low profile, no badge flash. Just a plain folder, 1 coffee, and a single question. "Are you prepared for what this means?" I didn't flinch. "It's not about me," I said. "It's about the kid who died." The ones who don't know, they're living in buildings held together by lies. He nodded. "We've seen some of this before. But not this level. You're sitting on something that's gonna ripple." "Let it ripple," I said. "Just make sure it lands on the right heads." We looped in 2 more agents. Small team, quiet. They verified every file, every vendor trail, every offshore link. No leaks, no warnings. I kept feeding them the good stuff. Falsified inspections, fake environmental impact studies, bribes coded as urban planning assessments. They said the case was airtight, and I believed them. Because this time, I wasn't just holding proof. I was building a wrecking ball. They told me to be prepared. They didn't say what it would feel like to sit across from your father while laying out proof that he built his fortune on fraud and death. That morning, I got dressed like I was going to war. Navy suit tailored tight, hair pulled back, not a single wrinkle or flyaway. No jewelry, no makeup, just sharp edges and quiet resolve. The arbitration room was cold and way too white. Conference table long enough for 12, but only 5 seats were filled. 3 arbitrators, me and him. He came in like he always did, like the air belonged to him. Handshake for every board member, one-liner ready. Can't wait to get this cleared up, he said with a grin. No one laughed, but it didn't matter. He wasn't talking to them. He was performing. He was performing for me. I sat down without a word, folder in front of me, locked eyes, didn't blink. The lead arbitrator, a gray-haired guy with a calm voice and a Wall Street vibe, opened the session. Formalities, credentials, review process, blah, blah, blah. Then they turned to me. Miss Holcomb, you may proceed with your presentation. I didn't make a speech. I just opened the folder and pushed it forward. First tab, zoning permits, 3 states, all signed off by shell companies tied back to Westridge. On each document, bottom right corner, a squiggle of a signature I knew better than my own, my father's. He leaned back in his chair and laughed. This is a joke, right? He said. She's always had a chip on her shoulder. You're really letting this become a personal vendetta? No one smiled. Second tab, fund transfers. 4 levels of laundering, but clear timestamps, wire codes, and vendor IDs. All under names tied to former Westridge employees. All protected. All men he mentored. I slid it across. These consultants, I said, all received wire payments on the same day they filed inspection approvals. For projects that didn't exist, he reached for a bottle of water, his hand just slightly off-center. A twitch. Third tab, audit logs, timestamped system entries showing login records during holidays, long weekends, and, in one case, during a hurricane evacuation. Your office approved this budget on October 12th, I said. Know where you were that day? He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. I pulled out one last sheet, the compliance report from the Guatemala school collapse, signed by him, stamped, approved, and dated. Same day he was photographed drinking Mai Tais in Tulum with a celebrity architect. That photo, it was still on his public Instagram. I laid it on the table. No words, just facts. The silence came hard and heavy. No one reached for the paper. No one asked questions. Just the slow creak of his chair as he finally leaned forward. He looked down, then up, then back at the paper. His voice cracked. That's not... He started, but didn't finish. He cleared his throat. Tried again. This is being twisted. You're misinterpreting data. She doesn't understand how approvals work in real time. But the edge was gone. The smirk, the swagger, all stripped down to nerves and half-truths. One of the arbitrators interrupted. Let's go back to the October travel logs. Can you confirm where you were during that week? He didn't answer, just sat there, breathing too loud, jaw clenched. I leaned forward, just a little. This isn't personal, I said. It's math. This isn't personal, I said. It's math. He didn't respond. He just sat there in silence while the arbitrators made their notes. 2 weeks later, the ruling dropped. Guilty, fraud, misappropriation of federal grants, criminal negligence tied to 3 overseas projects, no press release, no mugshot, no big-name lawyer with a sad little statement about misunderstanding or accountability. Just a quiet memo from the Department of Compliance, a single-line update on the company website, and his name removed from the side of the Westridge Global Corporate Tower by Friday afternoon. They didn't even use a crane, just a guy with a ladder and a crowbar. The board distanced themselves fast. His office was cleaned out in a day, his photos taken down from the hallway. Legacy erased, or at least papered over. They transferred him to a white-collar facility in upstate New York. Minimal security, 3 meals, no visitors. He'd be there for a while, long enough to fade. I didn't go see him. Didn't answer the phone when his legal rep tried calling either. Let the voicemail fill up. Meanwhile, my mom sold the house. Didn't say a word about it until the sign was already in the yard. Too big for just me, she said. I never liked those stairs anyway. She found a storefront space downtown and turned it into a tiny ceramic shop. Hazy windows, chalkboard sign out front, open shelves lined with bowls and half-glazed mugs. Place smelled like sage, lavender, and fresh clay. I stopped by every Sunday. She always had something new in progress. A vase shaped like a beehive, tiny animal planters, lopsided mugs she said weren't mistakes, just character pieces. She taught beginner classes 3 days a week, said it kept her hands busy. She hummed while she worked now. Not music, just soft, tuneless humming, like her body had finally found its own rhythm again. She smiled more, and when she smiled, it actually showed in her eyes. I asked once if she missed the house. She just said, "I never felt like I belonged there. This place makes more sense. We never talked about him. We didn't need to. Some days, customers would ask about the last name. Holcomb, like the construction guy?" She'd nod politely and change the subject. Other times, she'd pretend she didn't hear them and go back to wedging clay like nothing was said. I didn't blame her. The shop was her restart. Her clean break? Mine had been the evidence. Hers was the kiln. One Sunday, I helped her clean up after class. I was wiping down tables when she stopped mid-sweep, looked at me, and said, "You did the right thing?" That was all. No speech, no breakdown, no thank you. Just those 5 words and a nod. Like she was finally sure of it too. She went back to sweeping. I went back to wiping tables. That was it. That was enough. A few days later, I got the letter. Thick paper, formal handwriting. I recognized it the second I saw my name written in his stiff, perfect script. Like even his apologies needed to look presentable. I didn't open it right away. Just stood in my kitchen, envelope in one hand, coffee mug in the other. No return address, but I didn't need one. I already knew what the first line would say. "You turned on your own blood." I opened it anyway. First line, blame. Second, betrayal. I didn't read the third, fed it straight into the shredder. No pause, no hesitation. The sound of paper slicing into ribbons was oddly satisfying. He wanted closure. I already had mine. Back at work, things had shifted. Word spread, of course. Whispers, awkward silences, even a few good-for-you messages from people who'd never dared question him out loud. The new CEO brought me into the oversight committee. Gave me space. No speeches, just opportunity. I used it. Started a mentorship program for young female engineers, the kind who used to sit in the back of the room, quiet, waiting to be called on. I told them GPA matters less than guts, that showing up every day with your name attached to something real means more than impressing a boardroom. Some listened, some rolled their eyes, but they showed up again the next week, and that's what mattered. On my desk next to my monitor sat 2 things. The old engineering plaque, the one from the gala he tried to turn into a joke, and the compliance badge I was issued after the ruling. Not for show, for proof. Proof that you can build something honest in a world designed to reward liars. That integrity isn't optional. It's the foundation, or the whole damn thing collapses. He spent his whole life building fake things to look real. I tore it down, and I'd do it again without blinking.